So in this video, I'm super excited to share with you my 7 steps for gaining financial freedom. Now, if you're like most people, you're probably tired of hearing these financial programs. They're a lot like diet programs. You probably tried them and most of them don't work. But for me, this isn't just another financial program. I'm a lot like you. I have seen and read and watched all the different videos and books and articles on how to get financial freedom. And, honestly, a lot of them work. Getting financial freedom is a lot like getting to New York City. There's more than one way to get there, but ultimately you have to pick a path and you have to start working your way to get there. And what I would do is I would take a little bit from this person, a little bit from that person, and then I kind of put together something that worked for me. And I'd encourage you to do the same thing. And what I'm going to do is share something with you that worked for me. It's not just an opinion or something I read that I'm regurgitating back to you. It's an actual process that I took, and it took a while and it took hard work, but frankly, it worked out for me. So I want to share it with you, and I share it with all of our franchisees. Ultimately, if you follow these steps, I think you're almost guaranteed to gain financial freedom. I don't see any way that you couldn't, but ultimately, it's about putting in the work. In fact, a lot of people are looking for that magic pill, that magic workout program where they don't have to put in the work. And any successful, wealthy person I've found, they put in the work, and it took some time, but not maybe as long as you think. In fact, as adults, time goes by so much faster, and you'd be amazed at what you can do in a 5 to 10 year period of time if you have a system and you're working it consistently. So, what are the 7 steps? I'm gonna go through them with you real quickly, and in other videos I can dive deeper, but the first step, which is really the step that determines how serious you really are about gaining financial freedom. And that first step is get your expenses as low as possible. Now, Dave Ramsey does a great job of giving you inspiration and examples on how to do this, but essentially, most people don't have an income problem, they have a spending problem. And what they want to do is basically live this extravagant lifestyle, which is really the reason why they're unable to gain financial freedom. All their money is going out the window. I was one of those people, and I had to take a look in the mirror and realize, look, I'm drowning in debt. I was in my early 20s at the time. I had a fancy house, I had a fancy car, I had a fancy lifestyle traveling. The people around me thought I was doing good. I was throwing extravagant parties with limos and all these things, but frankly, I was broke and struggling. And I made the decision that I just wasn't gonna do that anymore. I wasn't getting ahead. I was reading the books. I knew what I should be doing, but I just wasn't doing it. And at some point in time, it clicked. And I said, I'm tired of feeling this constant pressure on my chest to pay the bills every month. So the first thing I did was aggressively attack all my debt. Paid off credit cards, paid off my luxury vehicle, and I did all that in about a year. The next step was get rid of this expensive mortgage, right? I had this house with a movie theater and a hot tub and something I just couldn't frankly afford. So step number 1 was get my expenses as low as possible. I sold the house, moved into a little townhome with my fiance, now wife, and we stayed there for about 4 years and 9 months, and then decided, what? We had saved so much money. Instead of buying a home cash, which we could have done at that time, we decided to buy a mobile home cash. And instead of, forking out several hundred thousands of dollars, we forked out $40,000, $50,000, and we moved into a paid off mobile home, and our expenses dropped to $475 per month for a housing payment. Meanwhile, our income was still high. In fact, it was getting higher. So that's actually the first step. Get your expenses as low as possible. Now, most people are listening to that story thinking, I don't want to move into a mobile home, and that just isn't the lifestyle for me. And I get it. This comes with sacrifice. If you're looking for an easy path, there's probably other programs out there, but to be honest with you, I don't know how well they work. If you talk to anybody who's been around the block, who's actually accumulated wealth, there's a time of sacrifice. There's a time for this period of getting a budget. I don't like to use the B word. We call it a financial pan, where you have essentially a fixed amount of spending that you're going to commit to, and you're not going to overspend past that. So step number one, I just kind of dove deep into because it's an important one. If you're not willing to do that one, the rest of the steps are irrelevant to you. So step number one is get your expenses as low as possible. Step number two is to get your income as high as possible. Now this is where most people start. They think that they have a income problem, so they go and make more money. But the moment that they start making more money, what happens? They start spending more money, right? So it's not that they have an income problem, they have a spending problem. And when most people start making more, they want to get a nicer home, get a nicer car, start eating out more, take more trips, kind of show off the hard work with social status or social status symbols rather. And that's something that keeps them in quagmire because they're not making real progress. Even though they're making more money, they're spending more money. Therefore, they don't have any money left over at the end. So your second step is to increase your productivity. Now, some people say, well, yeah, that's great. How do I do that? Depending on who you are will vary on what that answer is. But ultimately, you got to find a way to increase your income and decrease your expenses, which leads to the third step, increasing your profit. So you've taken the first step of getting your expenses down. You've taken the second step of getting your income up. In theory, you will now have some profit left over. That is the name of the game. In fact, that number is everything. That's what you have to show for your work at the end of the month or at the end of the year. All the work that you do is about getting a profit. So the name of the game is step 3, get profit. In fact, get as much profit as possible. When I got really focused on this system, the only number that mattered to me was how much profit do I have to show at the end of the year? How much more did my wealth increase at the end of the month? And so I highly encourage you to focus on step 3, increasing your profit margin, having something to show for your work. So the fourth step is aggressively paying off your debt. You know, if you've got your expenses down, you've worked to get your income up, and now you have some profit, you need to aggressively throw that profit at paying off debt. Now, debt is one of those things where a lot of people start arguing, oh, there's good debt and there's bad debt, etc. I won't dive into that here, but ultimately, if you have interest working against you, you want to get rid of that, right? Especially on cars, especially on credit cards, student loans, etc. You want to get rid of any debt that's not ultimately serving you and helping you gain financial freedom. Most people want to skip this step and get right into investing, right? They're like, oh, my debt's fine. I'll pay it off eventually. Let me just start investing my money. Well, most investments at best, if you're throwing it in the S&P 500, you might make 8 to 10%. If you have credit cards, you're paying much higher than that. So even if you're making some money on your investment, you're actually not offsetting the money that you're losing on your debt. So get rid of your debt. And by the way, I want to kind of rewind a second. There's something that happens on each step. Something changes inside of you when you make a commitment to cut your expenses. The self-discipline and gratification that comes from that is immense. And then when you take the next step and you start increasing your productivity and your income goes up, there's a confidence that comes out of you. And then the third step, when you start saving some money and you start seeing something to show for your work, and that little savings account goes from $500 to $1,000, from $1,000 to $5,000, from $5,000 to $10,000, from $10,000 to $20,000 and beyond, there begins to be this feeling of planting a tree, your little money tree. And you don't want to chop that tree down. You want to keep that tree growing. And so as you grow, you get this confidence about you. And when you get to the fourth step, which is paying off your debt, what you realize is once you've started clawing your way out of debt, you realize how hard it is to pay off debt, right? The amount of sacrifice and work and effort. So by the time you accomplish that goal of climbing out of debt, you feel so amazing, so free that you never want to dive back into that hole. So while you're going through this process, there's a personal growth aspect to this that's happening as well, which is hard to put into words, but I really hope that one day you get to experience it because it's a very liberating feeling that you get. But back to the steps, the fourth step is to pay off your debt. And a lot of people struggle with this. You know, debt is very addicting. It's like a drug. I use the term opium, like the opium drug, like heroin. Well, you have the opium, OPM, other people's money, and it's very addicting. And the moment you get a hit of that, it's hard to turn that off. In fact, in our society, everybody is addicted to debt in most cases, even businesses. So it's very rare to be someone who's sober and, you know, detox from debt. And you'll look around you and think, well, everybody else is doing it, it's okay. I'm again not going to beat up the subject of debt on this video, but the point is to get debt free is a huge liberation. And if you want financial freedom, getting rid of that debt is a huge piece because it's going to reduce your overhead and your monthly expense that you have to make just to get by. So that's the fourth step. The fifth step, this is where we get to the juicy stuff. This is where we start investing in what we know. Now, a lot of people, you know, think about it. You've cut your expenses, you've increased your income, you started saving money, you paid off all your debt. You should have a pile of cash now to start putting to work, right? And every month you should have more money that you can start putting to work. What do you do with that money? Well, there's a lot of people who have products and services to sell you and tell you what you should do with that. And we'll leave that for a separate video on what to invest in. But the point is, you want to start putting your money to work, right? And that's what you start doing in the fifth step. Now, again, most people skip all these steps, right? And they jump right to, let me try to make more money. Let me start investing my money, right? And they skip the self-discipline of getting their expenses down. They skip the step of paying off their debt because those are painful. It's painful to get your expenses down. It's painful to pay off debt. It takes work and hard discipline that most people don't want to do. But if you will do these things in this order, you'll find it works perfectly, and there's a personal growth that goes with this, and there's a snowball that goes with this. So the fifth step is starting to invest your money, making your money grow. And that's another amazing feeling. When you start seeing your money grow, it's such a new world that you haven't experienced until that point. And once you start seeing it grow, it becomes addicting. You want to keep seeing it grow. And you kind of leave that consumer mindset of being in debt, of spending all your money, and you get more excited about seeing your money tree continue to blossom. So the sixth step, which really you could do at any of these steps, but I put it in this order. The sixth step is to build productive relationships. You know, a lot of the relationships that we have are based on people we knew growing up or people that we work with, but we really want to have productive relationships that help us grow as a person and help us grow as a professional. So what does that mean? It means, I don't like to use the word networking because networking seems so tit for tat, kind of superficial. But productive relationships are you're getting something productive out of it, the other person's getting something productive out of it, and you're really growing together. And those productive relationships can change your life. The reality is, I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for the productive relationships that I established with mentors, that I established with vendors, contractors, employees, franchisees, friends, you name it. The importance of building productive relationships. Number 6, highly, highly important. And then the 7th step, which is maybe the hardest or maybe the easiest, depending on who you are. The 7th step is do it for a lifetime. It's all about consistency, right? I taught this, 7 steps to a lot of people. Some of them got on the path for 2 or 3 years. They saw amazing results. They got financial freedom and just stopped working the system, right? And that's okay. If that's what your goal is, that's great. But on the other hand, if you want to keep seeing this grow for you, you have to stick with it, right? So you keep your expenses low, even as you get your income up. You continue to have a profit margin. You stay out of debt. You continue to invest your money. You continue to build productive relationships, and you keep at it for a lifetime. And then you wake up one day in the future and you're financially free.